and welcome to the executive meeting on the 17th of February 2022, 5:30. The executive meeting is early because we have a council meeting at 7 o'clock, and I'm instructed that this meeting, whatever we do, has to end up by 6:45, otherwise it'll merge into the council meeting. Please ensure that any mobile devices or mobile phones are switched off. If you are participating via Teams when you are not speaking or being asked to speak, please mute your microphones. If you do not mute your microphone, it will be muted for you. Assist people viewing the meeting, could everyone participating via Teams turn their cameras off and only turn them on when speaking, and also introduce themselves whenever they speak. Please note that to avoid the chat function on Microsoft Teams being used inappropriately has been disabled. Please also note that the meeting is currently being webcast live. Present are myself, the leader of the council, John Halsall, John Kaiser, who's the deputy leader and executive member for finance and housing, Parry Bath, environment and leisure, Graham Howe is on Teams and is the member for children's services, Pauline Jorgensen, the executive member for highways and transport, Charles Margetts, the executive member for health, wellbeing and adult services, Stuart Monroe, the executive member for business and economic development, Gregor Murray, the executive member for resident services, communications and emissions, and Wayne Smith, executive member for planning and enforcement, and Bill Soane, executive member for neighbourhoods and communities. Graham Howe sends his apologies for not being here personally, and is on Teams. Supporting are Susan Parsonage, who's the Chief Executive of Woking Borough Council, Andrew Moulton, who is the Monitoring Officer of Woking Borough Council, and Hunter and Callum Woodham is from Democratic Services. Thank you. First of all, the minutes from the of the previous meeting, is everybody happy with them? And if so, could somebody propose them? John Kaiser proposing and Gregor Murray seconding. Thank you. Any declarations of interest? Well, I suppose I should declare the interest that I'm a director of Optilis Holdings Limited. Seeing as we're talking about budgets, so I think everybody director. Charles Margetts, director of Optilis, Stuart Monroe, director of Holco, and John Kaiser, director of Holco, and Wayne Smith, director of Holco. Just a short statement before we start. It is 70 years this month that King George passed away, leaving the throne to the Queen, and I'm sure that you will join me in thanking her for her service and to share her hope that the Jubilee will provide an opportunity for people to come together after difficulties of recent years. In recognition of the Jubilee, we will be providing residential closures, street closures. It is now almost 2 years since COVID entered the borough for the first time. The first case was on February the 29th, 2020. 351 deaths have been recorded. I would like just a moment's silence to commemorate all those who've tragically died and those whose lives have been impaired in the borough and elsewhere. All our thoughts are with them. In the last month, we have seen cases of the new Omicron variant in Woking reach new heights, but also begin to decline. The current rate of new COVID cases is 917 per 100,000. The current rate reflects the weeks 2nd of and to the 9th of February, although we must be cautious to remember that these case numbers are reliant on the testing behaviour underlying them. The majority of cases remain within our school-age population and their parents. The past month has seen a shift in tone from central government, looking to a future where we learn to live with COVID as an endemic disease. The detail around what this future endemic response will be released on Monday, and our officers will continue to work to communicate any new guidance and information to our residents through the Community Champion newsletter, via our website and other channels, and also support our partners and providers working with care settings and educational settings as they navigate the transition into an endemic landscape. As we await to hear the detail from central government, we must note that the guidance has not yet changed. We have yet, therefore, to encourage people to continue to test when they have COVID symptoms and isolate when appropriate. A cornerstone of the endemic response to COVID is to encourage as many residents as possible to get vaccinated, be it their first, second, or third booster vaccine. I'm delighted to announce that from Friday, the 18th of February, we'll have a local vaccine provision in Wokingham Central Library, open weekly on a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, with opening hours to suit our busy residents. All residents who are eligible, including importantly 12 to 15-year-olds, pregnant ladies, and those not registered with a GP, can walk up to the library and receive their vaccine at a time convenient to them. I urge you to encourage everybody to use this vaccination centre. As we try to understand and implement policy around what life with endemic COVID looks like, it is important to remember that different people in our communities have had very different lived experiences over the past 2 years, and therefore will be entering this period of transition with different perspectives. We need to continue to work together to be patient and understanding within our communities so that we can move forward and begin to recover from the pandemic altogether. I want to make it clear again that all this administration, my party and I, are completely opposed to the loss of every blade of grass, tree, shrub, field or green space in the borough. Once it's gone forever. The verdict of the borough is enough. Its consultation was also clear that the residents of the borough agree with our stance. Pinewood has never been a site allocated for housing. It is a site for numerous valuable clubs and organisations. I've made it very clear that this is the case on numerous occasions. Some seem to ignore what the council says and plough on with a narrative that is not the case. Wokingham without parish council has a long lease on the site at a peppercorn from the borough. It is included in the local plan to permit their development to improve their facilities, should they wish it, and included in our recently published leisure strategy. We must obey government mandates which require us to make provision for a government-determined number of houses. We have the option to do nothing, which would mean that we have no plan and therefore no defence against speculative development. There is not a square inch of the borough which has not been optioned by a developer who would seek to exercise that option by claiming we have no plan or 5-year land supply. The developer would be successful. I have no doubt that we would be faced with housing numbers several times those currently mandated. This is the option that the Lib Dem South Oxfordshire District Council took, with the result that I understand of many more houses and the original plan reimposed. I have worked hard and successfully to ensure that our housing numbers were reduced from 1635 to the current 789, and campaigned again successfully to oppose the planned changes to national planning policies. I will continue to press government to make more changes and encourage our MPs, who are all critical of the housing numbers and planning policies, to join me in so doing. I've been successful in the past and hope to be so in the future. I'm conscious that this is the start of a very long evening for most, for which the main topic of discussion is the medium-term financial plan and associated strategies and policies. However, it would be wrong to embark on these topics without acknowledging the success of the borough's economic regeneration, whether it be Wokingham Town Centre, the tech industry, the university or Shinfield Studios. We can thank 20 years of solid, stable administration, which has created and welcomed these opportunities. This did not happen by accident, but by the achievement of our officers and members throughout the 20 years of the administration. We have demonstrable resilience and financial probity. We are continuously researching new opportunities as we are repositioning our approach to wood investment and business. We are very enthusiastic to support proposals for the Royal Berks to relocate some of or all its services to the borough. which would not only create economic opportunity, but also be integral to our health and well-being strategies for all our residents. As we view the changing landscape and adapt to it, one of the early and visible casualties is the bus network. It appears that passengers are not returning in sufficient quantities to make the current network viable. To support it, we are having to increase the subsidy. We can only do this in the medium term in its current form if passenger traffic does not return. I'm recommending this budget to the Council, a budget that contains substantial investment in vital services for the community and contains no cuts. It is safe and prudent and will ensure we continue to deliver the high quality services that the residents have come to expect and rely on. Thank you very much. And now we move to public question time, and there are no public questions. And member question time. Jim, you're here. Fire away.
Yeah, thank you. A number of videos and other communications have been recently released, or they were recently released when this question was placed, by executive members aimed at relieving some of the concerns and anxieties residents have within regards to the local plan update. One of the main resident concerns is the potential impact additional traffic might have on local highway systems. To help local councillors like myself assist in managing some of the residents' local plans anxieties, will the executive member kindly provide access to the detail and cost of the traffic modelling and analysis undertaken in reaching the local plan recommendations?
Thank you, Jim. The transport assessment report, which represents the output of the transport modelling undertaken to the various growth strategies to inform the latest revised growth strategy. Consultation is all available on our website. Once you've had a look at that, if you have any detailed questions, I'm quite happy to work with the strategic transport team and set up a meeting with them. The work was part of a wider commission. However, the associated costs with modelling and the preparation of the report were just over £50,000. Further transport assessment work will be commissioned and published as part of the local plan, and as the plan moves forward into the next stages. But as I said earlier, the team are quite happily take you through that modelling, either online or if you come into Shoot End.
Thank you, Wayne. The reason I asked that question was that I was invited to a briefing by the Reading University with regard to the local plan Halls Farm proposal. I attended because I'd been made aware of a previous briefing that had also taken place with non-elected representatives of the local Conservative Association. To ensure my independence, I asked to be accompanied by a totally independent witness, which was kindly accepted. During this briefing, the university discussed many things, including the traffic modelling, and they made a statement of costs which was well into six figures. I don't know how many of these briefings they have or plan to hold, but if they're quoting and they confirmed when I challenged a six-figure figure, and you're telling me it's 50,000, then we need to stop that going out, because a six-figure cost is a lot more than 50,000.
Oh, it absolutely is. If you could just let me know who you spoke to, who was at that meeting, and then I'll follow it up with the people that are now running it from the Reading University side.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Gary. Are you online somewhere? Oh, yes.
Yes, I'm somewhere.
Far away. How lovely to see you. Far away.
And you. In a recent article in the Bracknell News, Councillor Wayne Smith, when questioned about a proposed site for 270 houses on council-owned land in Barkham, explained, "We are required to assess all land promoted for development as part of the local plan process." But he added that the council wants the majority of the new homes to be built in the so-called Hall Farm, Loddon Valley major development in Arborfield, a location where 2,200 homes could be built by 2037-38, which is the end of the plan period. If the council needs to build 2,200 houses to meet the housing need in Hall Farm, Loddon Valley by 2038, yet the draft local plan update consultation plans to build 4,500 houses there, meaning that many Woking residents in the south of the borough will be forced to live in a building site till about the year 2057 or even longer. From today, that is 35 years away, all on the banks of the river that has a history of flooding and under the shadow of the Category A dam at Bearwood Lakes in a climate emergency. Why do you plan for 2,200 houses in the local plan update, but consult on 4,500? Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Gary. I know you know most of this because we're living with your plan as we speak. The national policy requires strategic policies in local plans to look ahead over a minimum of 15 years from adoption. However, the larger scale developments form part of a strategy. Policies should be set with a vision that looks further ahead to take into account the likely timescale. Government policy now refer to a 30-year vision. Providing a long-term vision which sets out a holistic vision for a new community can be only the right approach to take. Any other route would be significantly misleading because it would be building on building on building. The Hall Farm, Loddon Valley Garden Village proposed in the revised growth strategy consultation provides an opportunity to create a sustainable new community with 4,500 new homes alongside jobs and the creation designated with a regional park along the river Loddon Valley. Currently, it doesn't have public access. Setting a long-term vision of the new garden community is the right thing to do. This not only provides transparency, but allows the council and other stakeholders to plan infrastructure appropriately. Having only a partial or short-term vision would require infrastructure to be designed and added in an ad hoc fashion over time, rising the risk of quality and sustainability of the place. As you're aware, no new homes or jobs will be located within areas of risk of flooding, nor would development have an impact on the communities further downstream. The consideration of flooding has been a key consideration from the outset of the master planning analysis, with a strategic flood assessment also undertaken. I hope that helps.
Supplementary, Gary.
Yes, I probably, you'd recognise I probably don't quite agree with that. But in connection with the LPU consultation referred to in my question, a resident of Arborfield wrote to Michael Gove MP, yourself, Councillor Hansell and Sir John Redwood on the 6th of December concerning the inconsistency between Michael Gove's oral evidence given to the Housing, Communities and Local Government Committee on Monday the 8th of November and the approach being adopted by Woking Borough Council in respect to its strategic plan update. The Secretary of State did reply on the 31st of January, and the resident emailed me again, also Councillor Halsall, yourself, and on the 2nd of February, he did advise me that he received no reply or acknowledgement from either of you to both emails, although I did reply to both. My question is, as the resident raised his initial concern to the Secretary of State during the local plan update consultation period, although the Secretary of State did not reply until the 31st of January, will you instruct the local plan unit team to accept his reply from the Secretary of State as part of the submitted evidence to the local plan update consultation? Thank you.
Yes, there's no reason why we wouldn't accept that. And also, Gary, as a build to that, John has written to Mr. Gove asking for a meeting. The letter that has been written is quite a detailed letter, and we're waiting for a meeting with Mr. Gove. So, you know, it's not that we're ignoring any communication with the Secretary of State, quite the opposite. We want a meeting to discuss the various points we raised in our letter. Thank you.
My question was about a resident who neither of you bothered to reply to, not Mr. Gove. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. So that's the members and public questions. Can we come to the agenda? The first items are the housing revenue account, budget, capital budget. Do you want to take the forward together or individually? Go on then.
Thank you very much. This is something we produce once a year. The housing revenue account is a ring-fence fund that we hold all our social housing assets in. It's pretty well protected. I have ambitions to increase the number of homes that we put into that fund over the planned period. This basically is, the recommendations of this is to increase the rents based on the council, which to 4.1%, which is what we're allowed, 3.8% for garage rents and 4.86%. These are under inflation, as we know, for inflation today runs at 5.5%. But we've decided to hold the sheltered room guest charges, which basically mean we talk about them as guests, but they are in fact people that have nowhere to live and living in their temporary accommodation. So we decided to hold that price at what it is at the moment, which is £9.50 per night. I think it's very important that we support this fund. It's adequately funded. It has quite a bit of headroom. So it no doubt going forward will become the vehicle that we will use to purchase more social homes. Social homes are becoming very important in this borough for various reasons, not least that even affordable homes in this borough are no longer affordable by the people on the lowest incomes. So I would ask for the executive's support on this document. Thank you very much.
Any questions? What's our ambition, John, for building social homes?
My ambition is basically, over the last few years, we've been quite successful. Again, I mean, say part of it, when Gary did our local plan for us, I mean, so we've built around about 1,700 affordable homes, and we've kept up with the issues, kept up with what we've needed. But COVID over the last 2 years is bringing that, accelerating the number of people that are homeless, and I would hope that we can match the aspiration of the people who live in the borough. We'll be bringing forward some other changes which will appear in other documents which will help us meet our homeless needs in borough. But to put a figure on it, controversial, but I would like to see in our new local plan that we adopt a 50% policy. No doubt that will be challenged on viability, and I would like to see a larger proportion of that 50% actually being turned into social homes, but that's for the future. Thank you.
John, I understand talking to residents that our rents are very favourable compared to our neighbouring boroughs. Is that just anecdotal? Is that correct?
It's always difficult to measure the rents, but I believe our rents are among the lowest in the area. Yes.
Any other questions? Everybody who's content? John, capital programme.
Right, thank you very much.
Sorry, I think I should have read the recommendation as well.
Yes, sorry. Yeah.
For which I apologise. The recommendation is as on page 23, but I think everybody in favour of that. Thank you. Sorry, John. Carry on.
Thank you very much. I mean, despite the challenging past 2 years, substantially as a result of COVID, the council's finances are in good shape as a result of years of financial stewardship under the council, the Conservative Council. So the council sets its 2022 to 2025 budget from a position of relative strength, despite being the lowest funded unitary authority per head of population. We underspent in 2021, and we contained the overspend in 2021-22 to approximately £500,000, which on a budget of 145 million is pretty good, of which £350,000 of that overhead could be directly attributed to COVID. General funds balances are just under £10 million as we speak today, but back March 2023, they will be falling back to £8 million. And I'll try and explain why that is. The Chartered Institute of Public Finances basically have looked at our council, and they believe that we are among the best 20 unitary authorities in the country with regards to the resilience in our accounts. The council tax collection also remains at the highest in the country at over 99%, which reflects the way we work with residents to help minimise the impact on the most economically challenged in the borough. And the fact that we are the most prosperous, and partly, I guess, we are the most prosperous area in the country, according to some. No, in this budget, there will be no cuts to services, and we will continue to invest in children's services, an additional 1.4 million, and that's basically to get us to a good Ofsted. Investments of 3.8 million in adult social care to meet the growing demand of our vulnerable population, and a 1.7 million place and growth improvement, which improvement to the environment. Our capital investment in the community over the next 3 years is £265 million. I will talk about that later. Despite being the lowest funded unitary authority in the country and receiving we are only receiving additional funding of 1.8 million from the government, where inflation alone will cost this council £8 million. Hence why we're in a position that we're reducing our reserves. The council continues to invest in climate change measures, planning to deliver 4 new solar farms over the planned period. The council will also shift emphasis to social housing to deliver more homes at a social rent. As I said earlier on, that even affordable homes are no longer affordable to those on the lowest incomes in the borough. And this, unfortunately, means with the high cost of constructions and materials, we as a council will be seriously looking at our own assets, our own land assets, both brownfield sites and new sites, because it's extremely difficult with the cost today. We are looking at a possible adult social care reform, which could be with us in a couple of years, and we've done some costings on that, and that could cost us £20 million per annum. So that's something we're very minded of. I mean, the local settlement as well is only for 1 year, and the new government funding methodology will be designed in the context of the national levelling up agenda. Now, where that leaves us as one of the most prosperous areas in the country, I don't know. Increases required for social homes, despite we do need to increase the social homes. The budget process is on a very sound footing and we've managed to put forward a budget as in these proposals that we've set out in the paper. Never have the finances, though, faced such considerable challenges and uncertainty going forwards. But I believe this is an excellent and robust budget. It's a balanced budget, and as such, I recommend it to the executive. Thank you.
Any questions? Wayne?
John, I understand that Slough have been instructed to sell assets to the tune of 308 million. Why have they been instructed to sell assets? I thought the problem was revenue and the fluidity of cash. Do you know? Interconnected.
Well, the way the finances work in councils, they're rather strange. They're not like normal companies. We have this distinct difference between revenue and capital. And we have lots of assets around the place. But if we sell assets, they must go back into the capital programme. In fact, I think it's illegal to sell capital assets and put into the revenue programme. But Slough have a problem where they've declared themselves, in essence, bankrupt. And the only way that they can bridge that gap is to sell assets. The assets they're talking about, as you rightly say, is about £300 million. Now, when you think about that, We as a borough have lots of assets, but could you just imagine the situation where you're forced to sell off your leisure centres? You're forced to sell your country parks, because that's what it would mean. That's why I take the budget very seriously, because the impact it would have on this council and on the residents, more importantly, all the assets that we have that they enjoy. I mean, I was with Pinewood, talking to Pinewood, and the situation is we can still invest. And the reason we can still invest is because we run the council's finances properly. Thank you.
Thank you.
John, I just wanted to pick up on your comments about the central government's adult social care reform and to really emphasise to members the threat this could pose to us. We're trying very hard we've been talking to West Berkshire, RBWM, basically about the potential threat this could cause. Myself and the lead member from RBWM have sent a letter to Sajid Javid about it. We're going to continue lobbying to kind of raise this with as many people as possible to get somebody to listen to us and hopefully address these problems. But otherwise, I fully support everything you've said.
Thank you, Charles.
Any other questions? So the recommendation is on page 33. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Then John, Treasury Management Strategy. 71.
Okay, sorry, I'm getting confused because I've got capital programme in there as well. Sorry, let me apologise. Basically, this is to agree the strategy management policy for the coming year. As I said earlier on, we are very prudent in the way that we run the council. We invest money in the council to enable us to generate revenue, which we can then use to provide services. I think it's really important to understand that the only shareholders we have are residents, and anything we make or any money that we make, the residents get to share in, because that money gets poured back into services. And I would say, without our investments that we've made and the capital that investment brings forward, it would be difficult for us to provide some of the less statutory services to our residents. So again, I would ask you to support this document. Thank you.
What impact is the MRP change likely to have on the capital investment programme and certainly our regeneration and commercial assets?
The MRP legislation, MRT, basically what the government say, that you must depreciate all your loans over the life of the loan, even though the asset that you have is an appreciating asset. That will have an impact on some of our investments, without a doubt. It won't have an impact on our town centre, because our town centre is now at the point where it is paying back its interest, if you like. It's become a free town centre in the fact that it's paying back its interest, and that will allow it to be able to pay its MRP. With regards to the housing companies have also, when they borrow money from the council, they will be subject to the MRP as well. But like all prudent companies, they have something called depreciation. Council doesn't have depreciation, they will have MRP. And so in the housing companies, for MRP, read depreciation in their accounts. So the actual impact to us, it may cause us some problems with regards to some of the other investments that we've got, but we have been we've bought the investments we've tended to be desirable. They've been supermarkets, they've been things like warehouses, and I would say in most cases, and we're going through a process of getting them valued, and it looks very good. far as we can see, it looks like what we paid for these, and they now exceed what we actually paid for these assets. Thank you.
But presumably it curtails some of our future ambitions, potentially in SDLs and commercial assets.
Yeah, I mean, one of the impacts could be we used to do a lot of forward funding of building roads. We'd build a road before it was necessarily. It was actually when we do a development, basically we agree we're going to build a road. Developers have tended in the past to build 50 houses and build 150 metres of road. Well, that's no good. So what we've done is we've said we will take on the responsibility, we will borrow the money, and then what we will do is you can pay us that back as the SIL or the S106 becomes due. It's not so important with SIL because of the way SIL is paid. But remembering most of our developments in the borough currently are being built under S106, and they have things in them which are called trigger points. So if you build, for instance, it might be the 700 house that basically delivers the road. The problem with that is if I was a builder and I'd think, well, I'll build 699, it won't the trigger. So what we tend to do is we take the money, we borrow the money, we build the road, and then we get the money back from the developer.
Any other questions? Pauline.
Sorry, it's very difficult to get a mask off without knocking your glasses off. John, I just wonder if you've got any comments on the general fund borrowing on page 75 and the supported borrowing. The figures seem reasonably low, actually, in comparison to what's being put around the place.
Well, Pauline, I mean, we only borrow the money that we need. I mean, so because obviously as soon as you borrow the money, you start paying the interest on it. We have had some of the borrowings in the past. We decided to do our own town centre. And as I said, when we started that, we couldn't find anybody else to do it because we as a council were prepared to take a lower return on it. We could borrow the money at a lower rate from the loans board. And it meant we could provide a new town centre. The issue is, I guess, that that will peak and then that will start to fall away. And as it starts to fall away, you will see the borrowing reducing. And if you look at the numbers, as you rightly say, if you look at what else we have in the bank, in different other accounts, when you add that to what we got as external borrowing, that brings it down significantly.
So what's our current borrowing, John, roughly?
Well, current borrowing at the moment, if you're talking about net borrowing, our net borrowing is probably in the region of about £170 million. But of course, that's a moving target because we're paying it off all the time.
So that compares pretty well with the 750 million, which was predicted to be.
Yeah, well, we never going to spend £750 million. I mean, so part of the problem is when we actually set our capital programme, we have ambition to build certain things in certain times. Those things don't always come don't come forward, and of course, COVID's made that even worse. So it does reduce the borrowing. It pushes things out to a further year, which actually smooths the whole thing over. Our ambition was to build £750,000 worth of assets, roads, and so on over the period. But we won't borrow £750 million to do it. It's just somebody's read the graph wrong.
Any other questions? So we come to the recommendation on page 71 on the Treasury Management Strategy. I won't read it. You read it. Those in favour? Carried. Okay, the MTFP, page 117. Capital Programme, page 33.
Okay, the capital programme, I mentioned earlier on when I was talking about the MTFP that basically we have a capital programme. That capital programme is that we want to invest over a period from 2022 to 2025, we want to invest £265,000. And the way this money will be invested is housing and local economy and regeneration. Now that includes our aspirations around social homes, £99 million. Roads and transport, £63 million. Children's services and schools, £31 million. Climate emergency, £30 million. Internal services, £20 million. Environment, £13 million. And adult care, £9 million. So it's fairly clearly laid out what our ambitions are and what we would like to spend. A lot of the spending we have as well, which I think is important just to mention, in the capital programme, most of our spending is what they call supported spending. That means if we spend money, let's just take adult services. Well, the money we will use in adult services, we will probably build a care home. And that care home will actually be for our residents, and we will be paying the money to our own care home. So if you like, it's an investment for us to make, that we make in an asset that gives us back income. So I think it's very important that with the exception possibly of roads, and we all need to move around, most of this investment is supported, whether it's supported by housing or whether it's supported by services that it provides. Thank you.
Any questions? No. Pauline?
Hi, it's a comment really, actually. I think as anybody who's ever lived in a place where you build the roads after the houses would verify, it's a pretty good idea to put money into roads in advance so that we can actually get things in the right order and not end up driving through mud all the time, which is of course what you've done.
And a brief comment from me. I mean, I share John's comments on building the adult social care home. Obviously, the potential financial cost to the council, if we didn't build that, would be expensive placements, probably out of borough, which not only would cost us more, but would also have the social cost, basically, of forcing residents to travel out of borough to see members of their family who were probably residing in there. So building it now, though it is a big capital expense, will save us a lot more money in the longer run.
Any more for any more? Okay. So 117, the recommendation as read, which is we've done the capital program. 117. So the recommendation that the executive recommend to the council, summary of budget movements, and 2.5, delegate the authority, deputy chief executive in consultation with lead member of finance. Those in favour? Carried. So those are the recommendations on page 23, 33, 71 and 117. Just for the sake of completeness, that just make sure that everybody's voted on them. Put your hand up, please, if you have. Thank you. So, John, the commercial waste contract, page 183.
Yeah, let me just make this clear. The commercial waste contract is not the general contract taking waste away from people's homes and disposing of their rubbish or their recycling. This is a commercial waste that the council generates. We've got 21 corporate sites, which includes Shoot End. We've got 3 country parks. We've got 2 cemeteries. We've got 2 hospitalist sites. We've got 32 maintained schools and 25 academies. So that's why when you see the number £750,000, it's not the sort of number that you would associate with collecting all the rubbish in the borough. But this is very much just the commercial waste still that we're doing. Thank you.
Any questions? Pauline?
It's a question of potential interest, actually. It doesn't mention who the supplier is, but just for clarity, my husband works for Veolia. He doesn't work for the bit of Veolia that does bins. He works for the nuclear bit. But I don't know whether I should be declaring an interest because I don't know who the supplier is.
Well, neither do I, but it's all right.
So the answer is it's a personal interest? Okay, thank you. And can I vote or not? Thank you.
Any other questions? No. So come to the recommendation on page 183, which the executive approved the renewal of the commercial waste and recycling contract and for procurement to advertise the opportunity and procure via a competitive tendering process. Everybody happy? Those in favour? Those against? All in favour. Thank you. Now we come to an item which I suppose I should propose, which is the school admission arrangements for 2023-2024. It's a wealthy document, very detailed, and it's quite interesting in the range of schools that we have and the authorised numbers. The recommendation is a statutory recommendation. We have to approve the admission arrangements and publish the report and to delegate the authority to determine admission arrangements. So this is sort of statutory stuff which we need to approve. Graham, I don't know if you can talk there, but I know you can't propose. Do you want to chat? You're mute. You're still mute.
Is that better?
Perfect.
Thank you.
Well, welcome from Africa.
Thank you. It looks like I'm going to be here for a while because I've just gone into isolation. On this document, it's about admissions arrangements, as John said. It's a statutory duty that we share with our schools. Our statutory duty actually only applies to year 3s and year 7 entry into schools, although we do provide the service to other year groups, and most of the schools opt into that. Of course, we have to observe a number of protocols, and in this instance, we have to make the determination by the 28th of February 22 for entry for 23-24. The key changes are listed on page 194. I will summarize them very quickly. We're going in anticipation of to clean up house moves into the area. The applications have to be in by the 31st December rather than the 15th of January. That aligns us with our neighbours and therefore obviously makes it much easier to synchronise. The school's adjudicator has determined that the emissions numbers for Collerton and Radstock reduced from 60 to 45 and from Loddon Primary from 90 to 60. Now, this is a general trend across the country where there is a falling in roll and is something that is on our agenda for future consideration. Alternately, with the soundings that there have been for residents and parents and so forth about Farley Hill, we're looking to take the number there to 60, and that will also help those that are looking to attend that school and not have difficult journeys that has been complained about quite a lot. I think that it's also important to note, and I'm embellishing this because people don't understand it, we control the community schools and the admissions numbers for those, which are the secondary schools is only Bulmerish. So 9 of the secondary schools determine their own admissions policies, and that's what we're trying to coordinate. And the same is true of about half of the primary schools. So as John says, this is a statutory obligation that we have, and we can take any questions.
Any questions from anybody? No? I think that's very clear. You're actually got a clearer view of you, Graham, than I would have from Remenham, which is remarkable.
Oh dear.
So let me take the vote on that. All those in favour of the recommendations on page 193. Thanks, Graham. 281 Gorse Ride Regeneration Project changes delivery model. Is that you, John? Yeah.
Thank you very much. The Gorse Ride Regeneration Project is the flagship scheme in the Council's response to the housing crisis, providing more and better affordable homes. The project recognises the value of a thriving community can make to the successful housing regeneration project by working collaboratively with the residents to ensure that the sense of community is preserved throughout the proactive engagement process. The provision of well-planned and well-delivered affordable housing has never been more important, as I said earlier on, and data on the national and local level shows that homelessness is on the increase, as with an escalating demand for temporary accommodation, which is not only impacting the council's future temporary accommodation budgets, but having a major effect on residents who have to live in these disruptive temporary accommodations by not having a stable and secure home. Meanwhile, increasing house prices in Woking and Borough continues to make home ownership affordable for many. The project is generally well supported by the residents, who along with the tenants and landlord improvement panel are updated on the progress on a regular basis. In May 2018, the Council's executive approved the Gorse Ride Regeneration Project to replace the existing 178 poor quality primarily council-owned social homes with 243 high-quality and well-designed, energy-efficient, set in a landscape of green space. If the recommendations within this report are adopted, that's a total of 240 new homes will be provided, of which 136 of those homes will be socially rented, 49 will be shared ownership, and 64 private sale homes. This equates to 51 more affordable home housing properties than are currently provided on the old development. So I would ask you to support this, please. It makes common sense for this to sit in the HRA. It increases the HRA stock. As I say, it's one of the things that we're looking to do to push the HRA so we can actually have more social homes in the borough.
Questions? No? Okay. Then the recommendation on page 281, which is to recommend that the council approve the development of homes, approve the expenditure budget, give delegated authority, and agree that any appropriation of land. Those in favour? Carried. Thank you. And last but not least, 289 local bus services. Pauline.
Thank you, Chairman. This paper is to deal with the fact there's been a slump in bus usage during COVID, and bus use has not recovered and is not predicted to recover before, 2023 or beyond, possibly. We've had experience of, for instance, the bus number 7 service having been withdrawn at very short notice by Reading Buses, and we're experiencing very low passenger numbers on some of our buses. So the problem we've got at the moment is there's no certainty on government funding as bus funding post-April. So this paper is to allocate some money to be approved to bridge that gap on approval of the Finance Director, the Director of Place and me, to make sure that we maintain bus services in the short term until we get clarity on the government grants, which we currently have and are now not sure the position of.
John.
Pauline, can you just confirm to me where this money will come from?
the money's coming from Section 106 funding, the council funds really.
So basically, this is developers funding to Steve Corn to get the bus services going again.
Yes, I mean the issue with Section 106 funding for buses is if the buses aren't used when the Section 106 funding runs out, we've got limited room for manoeuvre. So that's the issue with it. It's a fixed sum of money where we're trying to either develop bus services or bridge the gap before we find out what the government funding is.
So it's a good idea to use it at this moment in time to keep the buses going.
Yes, it is in the short term. Yeah. The thing is, it's not infinitely extensible.
Parry?
Thanks, John. Colin, you say it's in the short term. What happens after the short term? How short is the short term?
To be honest, Parry, I don't know. It depends on the government bus funding completely. So I think we'll just have to wait and see if we can get the bus usage to increase again. We might be in a better position, but at the moment, bus usage is not increasing. This is definitely giving us enough breathing space to try and work out what we do about it. We might merge services, we might do all sorts of things, but we need to get some time, put some funding in to make sure that in the meantime we can keep services that people do need running whilst we sort out what the future looks like.
It's good.
Yeah, Pauline, just very good news. So we did a survey down on the bus number 7 route, and 52 people use it to go to work. So I don't know how they're getting to work anymore, and I know that some of them have to resign from their jobs. So this is very good news. So excellent initiative. When can we tell them?
Once this is approved, I think.
So if there are no more questions, those in favour? And carried. So the recommendation was page 289. So unless there's anything else, thank you very much. And that closes the executive meeting. Thank you.